Welcome to What You Missed When You Didn't Exist. I am Corbett, and I am 53.
And I'm Lucy, and I'm 23.
Living and loving.
Living it up.
Well, today we're going to talk about something you missed when you didn't exist, even though you technically have seen them before, because my mother
This is
showed
true.
them to you. 8-track cassettes. 8-track tapes. A way to have a record player in your car.
This was before the Walkman?
Long before the Walkman.
Okay.
Long. They were made in the 60s when they first came out. So this was technically before me. But they were popular by the time I started wandering around. Essentially by the 70s and up into the 80s, they were being put into cars. That was the main thing that made them a sell point. Because you could pick up your music and play it in your car anytime you want. You didn't have to listen to the radio. It was crazy.
Ooh, okay. So this is what you did when you did not want to listen to the radio.
Well, if you had a tape, that's the thing. You had to have an 8-track tape. And you probably are a little confused because we talked about the mixtapes, the old cassette tapes. These are bigger. These are actually, like 4 inches by 4.5 and about an inch deep. They're kind of big. And what they are is a magnetic tape that rolls on a loop. It just plays and plays and plays and plays and plays. And there's 4 tracks, so you push a button to get to the next track. Each track has its own song. So you can listen to the same part of the tape and click a track and it'll jump over to a song that you want on another track. And that may sound a little confusing, but I guess I don't know how to describe it any other way.
But these are 8 tracks? How are there 8 tracks if there's 4 of them?
It's stereo tracks. There are 2 tracks for a right and left stereo. They're not mono. Does that make sense?
Wait, but there's not 8 songs?
There's actually way more than 8 songs to begin with, but it's an album. You would just like if you went and bought an album on a record or a cassette or a CD or any other technology that's obsolete now.
Yep.
You would have 10 to 15 songs, as much as an album would carry. And they put 4 stereo tracks, so there's 2 tracks per group. If you're playing it through your stereo, there's a right and left speaker.
Yes.
And you will hear things on the left side that you may not hear on the right side. And it's stereophonic sound. Maybe we need to go back to the 30s when that was invented. But there are 4 distinct tracks, even though it's called an 8-track. I know that's a little confusing, but we're going to get past this, all right?
Okay. I'm just going to ignore it and we can move on.
But essentially, you'd pop a button that would jump to the next track. So you'd listen to, say, a loop of, I want to say 4 songs, and then you'd push a button and it would jump to the next track, and there was a loop of another 4 songs. And then you would push a button and it would jump track, and it would be a loop of another 4 songs. Essentially, you'd go through the entire album by just popping through each one.
Okay.
So anyway, the 8-track made it possible for people to walk around with their music. Because it didn't have the same problem that records had. Because if you had a record in a car, obviously it's going to skip. Because that would be insane.
How would it skip?
Because records are designed for the weight of the needle to hold it in place on the line. And if you're driving down the road and hit a bump, it's going to jump.
Okay.
The tape would just play. So it made it pretty amazing and pretty cool. But unlike the cassettes that was from the mixtape show, you really couldn't record on an 8-track. It would be like a record where you just go buy it and you have it. You have whoever you bought, they were the one that made the deal. And what made them really popular was that they started becoming a add-in for any car. And that's partially because the Ford Motor Company backed them making it. Like, it wasn't just a bunch of music companies pushing for it. The Ford Motor Company was like, yeah, we want this in our cars. So they started putting the 8 tracks in the cars. If you get a really, really old car, you'll probably find an 8-track player if you look for it. But they would just push in directly with one end of the cassette has the tape on it that rolls, and the rest of it's just a big plastic cartridge. And you'd push it in like an old Atari cartridge system, or I don't know, there's nothing that's pushed in like that anymore. I can't even think. Like a USB?
Okay.
You know what a USB is, right?
Yeah, but I feel like that's different than the Atari system.
No, you just push it into a socket and it connects.
Like the original Nintendo system?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just take a cartridge and stuff it in a thing, and then it reads it.
Oh, so it's like anything Nintendo did. That makes sense.
Yeah, that was the way the cartridge system worked. The 8-track cartridge is really not much different. It's just that it has a rolling tape in it instead of digital data. But the cool thing, unlike a record, with a record, you put it on and it would play to the end of the record and then stop. Like the side of the record. With an 8-track, You put it on, and it just played that loop continuously. So if you wanted to hear the same 4 songs over and over and over and over again, it would play those exact 4 songs over and over and over again until you push the button and jump to the next track.
Mm.
Now, I think later on, like towards the 80s, they started coming up with auto track skipping. So it would like auto jump to the next track after it read to the same point on a cassette.
Yeah, it says after 80 minutes of playing time, the tape would start again at the beginning
Yeah.
because of the loop. You couldn't like rewind, so it would just start over.
No, it doesn't rewind. It just plays constantly.
Yeah.
There's really not much of a rewind to it at all. At least I've never seen one that did it, but it would be kind of cool, I guess, if it did. I don't know if you could. There's no wheels. I mean, the wheels are inside the cassette. There's no like outside connection to it. Not like the mixtapes where you could put a pencil in and spin it.
Yeah.
This just kind of is a reel to reel and just kept rolling and rolling and rolling.
Mm-hmm.
But it was pretty cool. You essentially got to take your music with you and listen to it. I know my brother and my dad both had Suburbans that ran 8-track tapes, and we had like a collection of probably 20 tapes. I know I love listening to the Blues Brothers and Blondie and the Eagles because that's all my brother ever listened to. And my dad would throw in a few of his country albums. And of course, me and my sister were always listening to a silly tape we got called Funny Bone Favorites, which is stuff that would probably wind up on the Dr. Demento radio show later on, but that's another show. But anyway, yeah, it was just a fun little way to play and listen to your music and carry it with you. I would say it's not as portable as what would become the Walkman later, but that's because the compact cassettes, the smaller ones that were made for those mixtapes, those were much more popular, and they took off really big in the 80s, which is kind of what killed the 8-tracks. I was looking through the history on them, and apparently they made them up until like 2020?
They are still kind of making them depending on the bands that like want to make them as a novelty.
Yeah.
The latest one was Dolly Parton's Holly Dolly Christmas in 2020.
I need to get that. Well, Dolly Parton's awesome, and Holly Dolly Christmas, come on, that's going to be awesome.
But do you need it in an 8-track?
Well, I don't have an 8-track player anymore, but my mother does. She still has the 8-track stereo ready to go at any moment. And if you can get a hold of one, they're pretty neat players, and I never have had a problem with an 8-track like eating a tape. I think with the cassettes, you'd always have it eat your tape, just constantly. With the 8-tracks, I never had it like, oh no, it's ripping the tape apart or breaking this or that. Like, it just worked. So they were pretty durable for what they did.
Well, they had to be. They had to live in cars.
Well, they wasn't just cars, but it was kind of what the big sell point was for them, because ultimately people could travel with their music, and there were a lot of places that didn't have radio stations, especially out west. So to have your music on hand and just throw it in and listen to the one you want to listen to until you got to a place where there's a radio station was nice. And of course, you could listen to your favorite music whenever you wanted to. They took up a ton of space, I will say this, because I think in the car we had, I want to say, an 8-pack of 8-tracks, and that felt like a lot. It's like a brick of space when you have that many. I guess I gotta ask you, what do you? There is no 8-tracks now. There's nothing like an 8-track.
No.
So I can't really say like what would be now, but there's nothing like it.
I've had the chance to witness this 8-track in person.
If I remember right, you hated it, didn't you?
It was your Funny Bones playlist or whatever it's called, and
those are funny songs.
So silly, so dumb. It's what I can only describe as like listening to Old MacDonald Had a Farm or Weird Al over and over and over again.
In my defense, there was no Weird Al when we got that tape. So
that's like the only thing I can compare it to, because it's just, I was so distracted by the music that I couldn't really take in the awe of, ooh, look at this ancient technology.
It's not an artifact.
At this point, it kind of is. Oh my gosh. It came out in the 60s. Like at that point, we're beyond, what is it, the royalty rights? 50 years? For digital stuff, yeah, you're beyond royalties.
You're beyond royalties.
Ugh, it's just a thing. I think it's cool because I think it's easier to compare it to like the Nintendo game systems just because that's kind of like that width and that like meatiness. Like if a CD was the size of a 1 pound burger, that's what the 8 track is.
Yeah, I guess you would be correct in that assessment. That would be
It's something for the people to understand. People that know what a VCR, VHS tape,
VHS
what a
tape. Yeah.
VHS tape is, it's like that, but it's like a little bit shorter. It's not as long. It's a little bit
Mm.
shorter than that. But it doesn't look like a VHS tape. It looks like the Nintendo system. So it's weird.
Well, it's a
I don't
cartridge.
know.
I mean, it's you're correct. It's a cartridge.
It is definitely influential towards the way we listen to music now,
Mm.
which you don't need all that extra silly storage because you just have it in your phone.
Yeah,
You
that's
need the
true.
phone storage. You don't need the in person shelves on shelves on shelves to take up space or, an entire duffel bag full of 8-track tapes to bring with you.
I will say this though, as far as the longevity of it, because you were listening, my mom made you listen to the Funny Bones favorite tape, and I was listening to that 40 some odd years ago. And that's a long time. I can't imagine pulling out any other tape, like any other cassette style tape that isn't worn or broken or in some way non playable. And that's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
pretty much in the record zone because records are the same way. You can pull those out and they still work now. They don't like stop working unless you scratch them.
Hmm.
And that is pretty neat. Whereas your phone can be dropped.
This is true, unless you save it into the cloud and then you can save it back.
Oh, fine. You and your cloud.
But again, it's the quality versus quantity, and we've had way more people exist in the world, and living in a capitalist, consumerist culture is just the way it goes. You got to get the hot ticket item. I remember what was before the MP3 player?
What, the iPod or?
I had the iPod, but I didn't get the iPod until like later because I had like the MP3 player. I don't remember what it's called, but I remember using CDs and like listening to them in the car. I remember we had like our stack that lived in the console.
Yeah.
I kind of hated the CDs because they got scratched up all the time. Probably because we scratched them up. There's something nice about taking music with you wherever you go.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of moved on over into why like stores have music and why people need, headphones so they can have music while they're doing their everyday things. It's just nice to feel like you're the main character and have the soundtrack of your life going on.
That's kind of true. I think that was one of the big sell points with the 8-track because you could have your music with you.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just whatever anybody else was listening to. It wasn't your records because they were too delicate to travel, but it was something that was yours. And usually, because it was sold mainly as a feature for cars, it was road music.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like the anthem for the American road trip.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
There's got to be one in every single coming of age movie. You got to have that montage of driving in a car, hair flying in the wind. It's peak entertainment.
Yeah. So I guess the lesson to learn here is get an 8-track player and put it in your car and don't question why.
I'm sure you can get them on eBay for thousands of dollars.
Well, they can't be that bad, can they? No.
Maybe. I mean, the 8-track tapes alone can range from $8 per tape to $50 per tape.
Okay. Looking on eBay, they range from around $20 to around $150. But like the generic ones that were just like slide in, they look like anything else. They're about $25 to $30. There's definitely some vintage stuff there, though.
You're kind of in the vinyl business at that point. Don't get 8-tracks. Get vinyl. You don't have to worry about finding the player. Records are everywhere. Those are going to be around forever. 8-tracks got replaced by cassettes. Cassettes got replaced by DVDs. CDs. They're all the same. They're all the same.
I hate to tell you, CDs and DVDs are kind of different.
Hey, you can put a DVD in a CD player and still listen to the movie. You just don't get the video. Think about that. Think about
Okay.
that. But don't get 8 tracks. Get vinyl. If you want to be vintage and if you want to be cool, get vinyl. That's the end of my story. But this has been What You Missed When You Didn't Exist. I'm Lucy.
And I'm Corbett.
And listen to some epic tunes. Be the main character in your movie soundtrack.